Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Dandadan Season 2, Episode 7. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're immediately picking up where the last episode left us, and that's Ken with Momo's friends at the Maid Cafe, or restaurant rather, and obviously, it turns out Momo had no idea. She thought it was just a regular restaurant, and they knew what it was ahead of time, but they didn't tell her because they knew it'd be more fun. But yeah, Ken doesn't know how to react, and neither does Momo, and she's supposed to, do her whole script, welcome home, master, and she's like, welcome, you bastard, and it's like, whoa, that's not what you're supposed to say. She's like, I'm sorry, it slipped out, and then Ken's so, embarrassed, and, and so her friends are enjoying torturing her. It's like, when she's pouring the tea, they're like, go ahead, make it tastier, because she's supposed to say something to make it tastier. Once again, it's part of the script. And it's like, come on, say it with your heart. Feel it with your gut. Come on, see, you can do it. And just know, and I love how her friends are messing with her. They've been bringing up, hey, Ken, you said you weren't going to drink anything, so why are you drinking something? He's like, well, obviously I'm going to do it, just, for Momo's sake. And so they end up taking a picture, doing the heart thing, Momo Tri-Beam. It's super, Moe Tri-Beam rather. It's super adorable and cute. And the others go, and they're going to drag Okudun away, but then he's like, no, I'll stay. And they're like, oh, okay, sure. And they're like, once again, they are the best friends and wingmans. Not only are they going to torture you and mess with you and take jabs at you, but also, they're pushing you two closer and closer together as wingmen. So I think that's super neat. And so Ken's like, oh, what time do you get off work? She's like, 10. And he's like, okay, so I'll stick around. She's like, no, you don't have to. She's like, just go home. Because he's like, no, you're this, a young lady shouldn't be walking home alone and stuff like that. But she's like, I'm tough. I'll be fine. And it's also going to get cold. He's like, okay. And he walks away. And you can tell the look on her face where it's like, she couldn't admit it out loud, but she wanted him to stay. Him deciding he was going to stay there to be with her, she really liked that. But I think there's also that element of, I don't want you to have to see me at work. You being here was super nerve-wracking. But you see throughout the entire montage of her at work, everything rinse repeat of everything, just different customers, and her just staring at the clock. When we see it go from 5:30, another time she checks it, it's literally only been 30 minutes. So rinse repeat. Finally 10 o'clock comes, and she thinks oh, I'm sorry I did such a terrible job. They're like, no, you did great. Just stop by again whenever you want to. So it's no, the jobs you're she was kind of scared that she lost her job because she felt oh, I haven't been cute enough, or I probably slipped up here and there. But it's you slipping up and being embarrassed, it just adds to the aesthetic of your makes you a very, gives you kind of that tsundere energy to her her maid character, because she she resonates, tsundere energy. So I'm sure that just adds more to her charm, her kind of being so klutzy during it all. So that is a very that checks boxes for some customers and stuff like that. But I think it's also playing into apparently Momo's always kind of never really been able to hold down a job, apparently, because she butts heads with her boss or just kind of gets annoyed with situations. So she was kind of oh, my personality being what it is. Wait, what? You're saying I did a great job? I could come back? Oh, cool. And when she gets outside, you can tell there's a part of her looking around, probably almost hoping she was probably hoping Ken didn't listen to her and would stay. And she's like, oh, okay. And she's like, oh, time to go home. But then as she's going, Ken runs up. Because we don't know if he just stayed in the general area and kept himself busy, or he did go home and then came back. I don't know, because the way they were talking about it later on made it seem like Ken might not have ever came back to Momo's place. So I get the feeling he probably was in the area, and he's or maybe he did run all that way. Regardless of it, he was yo, this is okay. You're done with your shift, right? And she's like, whoa, what are you doing here? He was like, yeah, I wasn't gonna let you walk home by yourself. He's like, plus it's cold, and he reaches out to take her hand. He's almost oh, sorry about that, and he kind of holds onto his back a little bit, and his hand's out, and she scoops in and she holds his hand, and it's she's like, yeah, just because it's so cold, and he's freaking out. He's just it I love it. It's so adorable. Then back at the ISA residence, Gigi's training seems to have come through. He, Manjiro is trying to push on him, and there's been no, it's oh, it didn't work. And then in that moment, it's okay, cool, we got to test this out with room temperature, which was something I wasn't so listening to different people, I didn't pick up on it. I was like, is that soy sauce cold temperature? I was assuming it's room temperature. It said, yeah, this like they've never said it. That was just kind of like, well, you're supposed to pick it up from that. But I do like the clarification of, yeah, even room temperature. So you expressly need hot liquid. It can't be room temperature or cold. And it was so disturbing when you see like it drop and how like his hand because this is our first time seeing the proper transformation, especially because he's trying to hold it back, like how warped his like muscles and his arm was. It was creeping up on his face. But in that moment, he was able to push it back. Granted, it took everything in him. He's like, Jesus, that's so exhausting. But it's a first step forward. And it's like, cool, we're making progress. But we still have to be worried about, like, that's just warm room. That's only room temperature stuff. We need to be wary about cold stuff. And so Ken and Momo finally come back. And it's like, wait, where were you? And she's like, Momo's like, I had a part-time job. It's like, wait, you did? And they're both blowing on their hands, looking so adorable because their hands are cold. But then, like, Ira runs over because she's trying to figure out, like, yo, why are y'all both coming home together and so late? And then Gigi wanted to come over and be like, yo, you guys won't believe what happens. And in that moment, like, Ira spills her, seems like a boba drink on Gigi, and he transforms. And just like that, shit hit the fan. They've been able to kind of, like, hold stuff down. But the problem is, Evil Eye is just waiting for every little opening he can get to break through. And he took advantage of this situation. He locked everyone out except for Momo, because Momo's arms are up in the air, like above like the house he's trapped her in. And it's like, okay, you can't do anything in this moment because your hands aren't free. Granted, she's luckily been training where she hasn't needed to directly use her hands to use her powers, because even when her hands are tied, she's been able to use them. But also, like, she doesn't have access to the water because the thermos is up above her head. Above the house, and he comes in and he's like about to start choking her, and luckily she's able to use her arm to extend out and push him in. But the problem is that he shrinks the house to push him closer, and he starts choking her. Seiko tries to use a talisman. It doesn't work, can't penetrate through. Ken's trying to punch his way through, tries to use his power, but it's like they're so close to like not like Momo's close to death at this moment. Like, this could be it. And in that moment, Momo spits out the water. She was waiting for her opportunity, and it all is resolved. And in that moment, Gigi's like, yo, I'm sorry. And Ken runs over, pushes him out of the way. And I think this is such a very like, oh shit moment, because not only was that so scary, but I love what this moment meant for everybody. For Seiko, for Gigi, for Ken, for Ira. Momo's the only one that, like, she's not as worried about it as the others, because Ken is like, yo, like, Momo, like, are you okay? She's like, fine, it's a good thing I prepared that. And then Seiko's trying to make him feel better. She's like, don't blame yourself for that. But Gigi does, because he's looking at that, because I think in that moment he sees, like, Ken and Momo, where it's like he's scared, I think, and afraid, like, yo, one of his friends, it's like, yo, Ken said he'd get stronger to help me because I'm his friend. But I think in that moment, Gigi's kind of worried, like, yo, the way Ken looked at me, like, what if, like, this is... There's a lot of... I'm stammering, sorry. It's such a beautiful moment in because of how heartbreaking it is, but it's just like, oh shit, where like everyone's dialed in moment, because you have that heartbreaking thing with Ira where she's like, I'm sorry. And like Momo's like, what are you worried about? Like, stuff happens. But Ira's like blames herself, because if something had happened to Momo, she would have been like, it's my fault because I wasn't careful. Like, the whole point was like, oh, we're all going to get stronger. We're going to, and if for her, it's like everyone else is being as careful as possible. And I was. And I think it's interesting because when you think about last episode, whereas everyone else was like Momo, Gigi, and Ken are more on top of that, what was she doing? She was knocked out because she wasn't being as involved, even though she's like, she was saying it just for Ken's sake of, oh, I'll get stronger. But this is a real moment for her where it's like, I couldn't do anything. And it was actually my fault. It wasn't because of something Gigi did. It was because of me. Because of my carelessness, something could have happened to you. And I think it's for her, it's like, if anyone got hurt here, it would have been my fault. But you were hurt and you could have died. And I think there's also the element for Ira. It's like, she would never admit it outwardly, but Momo's like her only friend she has. Like, and she's close to Ken and Gigi, but like really like they butt heads a lot, but Momo is her friend. And it's like, I could have gotten my only real true friend, my frenemy, killed because of my carelessness. Gigi's beating himself up because he was trying to congratulate himself, like, yeah, we did it. Like, I'm already taking steps forward. And for him, it's like one step forward, two steps back. I almost hurt Momo in that instance. I came so close to killing her, and she's so blasé about it. Seiko's trying to make me feel better about it, but I think like Ken's reaction really hurt him, where it's like, yo, like this shit is real. Like, I don't know if Ken's going to forgive me. I don't know if I can forgive myself, you know? And then Seiko's beating herself up because she has this great conversation with Manjiro, where Manjiro's like, yeah, like, it's great the progress Gigi made, but this is unsustainable. Like, living with a spirit like Evil Eye was just never going to last. He's like, the impossible is the impossible. And Seiko says this great line where she's just like, an adult's job is kind of to basically take away all a kid's trouble so that they can basically so that you can tell them like, hey, I'm gonna take all the responsibilities, all the trouble off your shoulders so that you can do whatever you want. But then like Manjiro responds, it's also adult's job to basically make a kid realize the reality of the situation. He's like, I appreciate Gigi's spirit too. I like it too. But in this moment, like, we just have to do what we have to do. This isn't a sustainable situation. Like, Evil Eye is always watching and waiting for any slip up, and this was a stark reminder of that. And just for Seiko, it's like and her final line is, it's sad because she saw the way Ken and Gigi looked at each other. They couldn't even like stare at each other because they're just like awkward around each other now, and she sees how much of a strain this is having an effect on everyone. And as the adult in the situation, especially because back in episode 5, she blamed herself because she's like, if I knew Evil Eye was even responsible, like with Gigi's family, if I knew Evil Eye was involved, I would have never sent you guys there by yourselves. I would have, and that's why I think a lot of that is like, once again, I'm the adult in the situation. I'm trying to let them live their lives and do what they want. But like, it's such a complicated thing, and her like feeling that she can seem very flippant and very like free spirited and stuff like that. But these are moments where she gets serious, where she feels like she hasn't said it out loud, but her words are in her being like, I feel like a failure. Like I feel like this is a low moment for everyone. And Ken's beating himself up because he's like, right, I made my declaration that I would protect, everyone. I would, kick Evil Eye's ass. But in this moment, Momo could have died and I couldn't do anything. I made this declaration I was get stronger and I couldn't do anything in that moment. So who does he go visit? He goes visits Peeny Weenie, who's in his human form. So I'm going to clarify something. There's the character in the outro. He's in the intro too, I think, but like you see him a little bit more in the outro. The guy that's like during the Dexon section, he's in the school. It's nighttime, and he's in the hallway with the flashlight. I talked about it previously. I thought that was Peeny Weenie because I was conflating that with another scene where you see everyone in the hallway, and then Peeny Weenie's playing with his kid in his human form. But I was conflating it and making it those were the same characters. They're not. I think I know who that character is because I was listening to the most recent episode of Otaku Anonymous, and I think Nick referenced like a character that's going to pop up probably relatively soon. He's like, it's a super divisive character. You either love the character or you're going to like absolutely hate the character. I think that's who he was referencing. Well, I won't even say the character's name. We'll see. Like if the character's name comes up, but I think it's that guy. But if his name ends up being what I think it is because of what Nick said, I'm like, that is in fact the person Nick was referencing. So, I just wanted to make that clarification because I kept being like, oh, like that's him in his human form. It's like, no, Peeny Weenie's human form looks the way it does. I just kept conflating him and this other character. But either way, Ken went to go see Peeny Weenie in his human form, and apparently a lot of aliens take on human forms, as we see with the head of the, because I'm blanking on her name, the head of the Keto family. But Ken wants to learn from him, like, yo, I need you to teach me how to throw a punch. And he's like, no, I'm not going to, because he's like, violence isn't really the answer. I think because he uses his skills just to, I don't know if he knew Ken's motivation, would that have changed his perspective on it? But I think it's the thing of, I know what I know, and I want to live a peaceful life. I don't want like to perpetuate violence, and me teaching you that is going to do that, because I think it also means like, oh, you're going to put yourself in more danger. And it's like, as a father himself, I think he doesn't like seeing kids mixed up and stuff. I think that might be some of his justification. But Ken's training on his own. He's outside throwing some punches. It's not, I don't it looks like, based on that manga cover, I was like, is that supposed, it's like, it's not, but is it supposed to be Hajime no Ippo? I mean, it makes sense because it's like the most, like, well-known boxing manga, so like it makes a lot of sense. But he wants to learn how to throw punches, and then Turbo Granny's like, what are you doing? He's like, I want to throw punches so I can become stronger. She's like, do you want to learn how to throw a punch, or do you want to become stronger? And for Ken, it's like, well, both are the same thing. And she's like, they're not. The fact is, you do not have access to all of my power. The fact is, she's like, Evil Eye is faster than you. But it's like, no. I'm a billion times faster than Evil Eye. It's just that you are slower than Evil Eye because Evil Eye is stronger, faster, and has better techniques. I thought it was really interesting the way Turbo Granny broke it down later on in the episode, where she's like, basically she's using musical notes, like, the rhythm of music, to be like, okay, this is how long it takes for you. Like, this is your musical note of like, okay, from jumping up and then landing on the ground. That's one movement. That in one beat, that's what you can do. The problem is that Evil Eye can make 4 moves in that one beat. An example that immediately crossed my mind, it's not a direct example, but I think there's an underlining parallel that you can extrapolate from it. There's a character in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV show. There's an Inhuman known as Yo-Yo. I always never know Yo-Yo's. I can never remember her real name because I'm just so used to referring to her as Yo-Yo. But she's called Yo-Yo because she's a speedster, but her power is very unique in regards. Initially, there's stuff that later on happens in the series that modify things, but that's neither here nor there. It still could be applicable, but where we're bringing up this whole, like, what actions you can make in a beat type of situation. In her case, she can run as fast as she can. Like I said, she's a speedster, but she can only make it as far as she can go in the time frame of a single heartbeat. And after that, her power rebounds her and she goes back to her starting point of where she started using her power. That's where the whole yo-yo coming out. She throws herself out as like a yo-yo and she comes back after a heartbeat. So it's kind of a similar principle. So she basically says that Ken could only make 2 moves in a single beat versus Ira can do 4 with Acro Silky's abilities, and then Evil Eye can make 4. In fact, if he uses that evil house of his, he can basically do 10 moves. So it's like, you've got to learn how to do, like, make multiple moves in the span. Like, you're very monotone in your fighting in the regards of you make 1 or 2 actions in a single beat, versus you need to be able to, like, shift it up and, like, strike multiple actions in a single beat. That's where you got to learn how to move and stuff and improve upon. And so Turbo Granny's taking over this because for Ken, it's like, when I think that's where the frustration comes from, because he's like, when I think of Evil Eye, I just want to punch him. And so that's why he feels a little conflicted when he's looking at Gigi, because he wants to respect what Gigi wants and he wants to help out. But I think it's his own feeling of failure of, I made this declaration and I didn't fulfill my end of the bargain, so I need to. And it's like, when I'm looking at you, Gigi, I don't just see you, I see Evil Eye, who I want to beat the crap out of because of what he did to Momo, the danger he put other people in, and also like what he's doing, ruining my friend's life. So I think all that's kind of culminated. And so he leaves with Turbo Granny, and Ira follows them to the school where they're going to be training. I figured, like, it had to have something to do with the training. And she's like, oh, what are you up to? And kind of being a little bothersome. And then Turbo Granny's like, yo, get away. She transforms into Acro Silky and was like, hey, yo, keep running your mouth. I'm going to stomp on you and crush you. And then she proceeds to, like, stomp on her face. And you see her face is, like, bruised and squished in next time we see Turbo Granny. But Ira's like, oh, you want to get stronger? She's like, I get it too. And she's like, oh, also, Ken, all that nasty stuff I was saying, that was Acro Silky. I would never talk like that. I would never say words like that. And immediately, literally a beat later, is saying the exact type of word and phrasing to Turbo Granny. Because that's who she really is. But she puts on this, like, you know, because how she interacts with Momo is kind of her real personality, but she puts up her facade. You know, that was like her perfect facade around, like, her quote-unquote friends, and she tries to keep that up again around Ken. So they go to a music room, and like I said, Turbo Granny uses her examples of what's going on as she's playing music. And in that moment, like the piano activates and more music is being played, but it's not Turbo Granny. She did what she did to summon up some yokai spirits here to basically be who they train against. And it ends up being like these, I don't know if it's meant to actually be the spirits of like those deceased musicians, like I don't know my classical musicians, so forgive me, like your Beethoven's types and stuff like that. But either way, I don't know. I don't think that's supposed to be them. I guess it's like the spirits of maybe the school or whatever that are buried there or have been resonating there were stirred up by Turbo Granny, and she basically, and they just manifest themselves as those musicians because maybe there's a deeper reason why that is. Whatever the case may be, there's quite a few of them, and this is meant to be Ken and Ira's proper training arc because they've had relative, like specifically Ken's had a little bit of a training arc, but not, and that's just like him on his own, and this is kind of going through some proper training, learning like the mistakes he's been making and kind of filling in some of the gaps he has when it comes to his skills and techniques and how he should fight using Granny's powers. Because once again, she said since the acro silky fight, maybe even before then, being like, you don't really know how to properly, you're not even using all of my powers. So yeah, a lot of really, really interesting things. I'm excited to ultimately see where all of this takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.